gangs known as posses are now dominating the American drug trade.
In Above the Law, he got tough.
Who's that?
John Hatcher, DEA.
In Hard to Kill, he got even.
This is not the time for you to walk out on me. I've had enough. He thinks she's retired.
He still looks functional to me.
Now, the man with the short fuse is marked for death.
I want you to meet my sister, goddess of fire.
Steven Seagal is John Hatcher.
He's dead. And he don't even know it.
A good cop
Your family has been marked.
in a bad mood.
Said he'd kill us both.
I don't think he's gonna get the chance.
What are you planning to do?
I'm gonna take out the posse. One thought he was invincible. The other thought he could fly. They were both wrong. Who do you fear? Him or me? I'm gonna deliver you into the light.
Steven Seagal is marked for death.
It's my silent partner.
But this time, he's bringing out the big guns. Steven Seagal, marked for death.
Are you some kind of cop? Nah, I'm just a concerned citizen.
Interesting fact here, this is the only movie Steven Seagal made when he was making movies at Warner Brothers that was not released by Warner Brothers. This was released by 20th Century Fox, and yeah, this is one of the few movies he made outside of the Warner Brothers, because most of his movies were at Warner Brothers, even up until Exit Wounds, and then he made I can't remember the name of it. I think it was Half Past Dead for Sony the year after Exit Wounds came out. But yeah, this is the only movie that actually came out during Seagal's popularity that actually was not a Warner Brothers release. This was a Fox release, and it did pretty well. It was an unexpected hit. It was the #1 movie in the country for 3 weeks straight. So they did something. He was doing something right with this, and this movie really is what you'd expect to see from Steven Seagal. It's a movie that doesn't have the best script. It's a very formulaic script, but the action sequences are still very fun, and Steven Seagal has some charisma to him in this movie. I mean, he's kind of decently good in this movie. Like, it's hard to say because of how much the later movies that he would make would get a little more pretentious, and his acting would slowly but surely decline. Like, he really wasn't giving a crap anymore. But in these early movies, you could still see that he was still enjoying what he was doing, and he definitely shows it on screen here. Keith David's also in this movie. He's very good. Joanne Pakula's in this. Some other notable names in here: Kevin Dunn, Daniel Harris from the Halloween 4 and 5, and Danny Trejo, Terry Weigel. Some notable names in here. Like I said, it's a movie that it is what it is. You can pretty much tell what it is. And if you like Steven Seagal's other movies like Above the Law and Hard to Kill, this is definitely right up your alley. And it is what it is. It's nothing spectacular, but it's pure Steven Seagal action at peak Steven Seagal action, pretty much. Like, it's much better than most of his direct-to-video movies. So you take whatever you get from this. So there you go. That's Marked for Death. So that was the biggest new release this weekend. But let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and it's a re-release of a Disney classic. It's the 50th anniversary re-release of Fantasia.
Walt Disney Pictures presents the 50th anniversary of an all-time animated masterpiece, Fantasia. The most incredible musical fantasy ever is back. This fall, you're invited to experience the breathtaking beauty, the wonderful adventure, the very special magic, and the electrifying power of one of the most spectacular entertainment events of all time. It's a motion picture you will never forget. Now, with a completely restored picture and soundtrack. It's the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney's classic, Fantasia, a symphony in sight and sound.
This was actually the last time Fantasia was ever released in theaters, this was kind of near the end of when Disney used to have the thing where every 7 to 8 years they would re-release one of their classic movies, and this was the last time Fantasia got a re-release, and then Fantasia wouldn't return to the big screen until Fantasia 2000, near the end of the decade. But what can you really say about Fantasia that really hasn't been said already? It's a great movie, a bold experiment for Walt Disney and the studio. It maybe didn't live up to the expectations that Walt Disney wanted. He wanted to make this a roadshow type of a movie where he would make new movies of these every single year, but unfortunately, the numbers didn't really come out as well the first time around this movie came out. But it did find a following. It did find a following through the re-releases, through the fact that it was just a great movie overall. But sadly, those early dreams of what Disney wanted to do with this never really came true, and it really kind of dinged the studio a little bit back in the 1940s. But since then, it has grown with much more appreciation, and for obvious reasons. Each of the segments all carry a great sense of memorability to them. And it's kind of cliche to say this, but if I have to pick the best one, it's got to be The Sorcerer's Apprentice. It's not only a great Mickey Mouse cartoon, but it's one of the most creative and inventive shorts you will ever see. Just some of the animation and how the music works so well to it. It's great. It's great to look at. A close second is Night on Bald Mountain at the end of the movie with it's a short that's tense, scary at times. The animation on Chernobog looks incredible. And when it ends with the rendition of Ave Maria, it has some of the most spectacular animation that you will ever see. And of course, it helps once again with the great music overall in this movie. I really don't have anything much more to say about this one. It's a true film classic, bold for the time, one of the most impressive achievements Disney had done up to that point. It's one of those classic movies that still holds the test of time. Still an amazing movie all around. I don't think I need to say you have to see it, but you probably have already seen it. But if you haven't, get off your butt and go see it, man. It's definitely worth the watch. Can't really say the same thing about the next movie, which is Anthony Hopkins and Mickey Rourke in Desperate Hours.
It could have been the house across the street.
Hey, how about a kiss?
He could have picked the family next door.
Bye, Mommy!
Michael Bosworth is looking for a place to call home. Just for a few hours.
You called about a winter cover for your pool?
What?
No one's gonna hurt you. Okay? You're gonna learn to trust me. You have a daughter, May?
Did she know your name?
She's 15.
Nora? Hey!
Everything's under control. What do you want? I just want a place to relax.
Bosworth is very intelligent, but we also know that he always reverts to violence.
There's nothing we can do, man.
I'm getting really angry.
That gun the kid was carrying is registered to Nora Cornell on Whitney Drive.
Good evening. Attorney Nancy Dwyer says it's a miracle escape killer Michael Bosworth did not kill her.
He's not afraid to die.
I'm scared, Dad.
You know, I really like this family, but you're pushing my patience.
Now I could be inside that house in 1 minute.
We're giving that family a chance.
It's almost over, Kelly.
I got this wacko on my sides. I think I can take him.
Desperate Hours.
Based off of a movie from the 1950s from William Wyler, had Frederick Forrest in it. This is Desperate Hours with Mickey Rourke and Anthony Hopkins. You also have Mimi Rogers, Kelly Lynch, Lindsay Krause, Elias Koteas, David Morse, Shawnee Smith. Good cast overall, but yeah, this movie is not very memorable. It's a very bad movie. It's a really underwhelming movie when you look at everything it has going for it. You have this great cast. You have Michael Cimino, who just 12 years prior to this, directed a Best Picture winner in The Deer Hunter, and seeing his career crashing and burning ever since Heaven's Gate, leading him to this movie, it's just... It's not really his fault, though, because the studio did interfere. The producers of the film mutilated the movie. It ended up being... And I think that was because... And I think that's why the movie ended up being as bad as it was, because the editing was so terrible. There were so many plot holes. There are deleted scenes and stills that show a few of these deleted these sequences that were cut out, and there's never been, I don't think there's ever been an official release of that original cut that Cimino had with this. But this didn't help him with his career comeback at all. Like I said, after Heaven's Gate, his career really took a nosedive. Nothing really clicked for him as much as The Deer Hunter did. But yeah, Mickey Rourke is just terrible in this movie. He has this voice that's so nasally and so annoying, and it's just like, how am I supposed to take this guy seriously as the villain? I mean, there's no way you can do that, none whatsoever. And much the fact that he actually was nominated for a Razzie Award for this, and if Andrew Dice Clay didn't make Fort Fairlane, then he probably would have won it, because this was really a bad performance by him. It's just a disappointment of a movie. It's a movie that probably could have worked in better hands, and if the studio didn't mess around with it. But it's very bad. It's a very badly written movie. I don't think I have anything more to say about this one. Desperate Hours, just desperately pathetic. That's the best thing I can say about it. But anyway, on to the next movie, and we have the first ever NC-17 movie since the rating was implemented, and that was Henry and June.
The picture has been rated NC-17. From Philip Kaufman, director of The Unbearable Lightness of Being, Henry and June is an erotic masterpiece. The most intellectually sexy movie since Last Tango in Paris. Erotically charged, exciting, seductively compelling. Henry and June is the year's most satisfying film. Henry and June, rated NC-17.
Now playing at select theaters. No children under 17 admitted.
So like I said, Henry and June was the first movie to ever receive an NC-17 rating, which actually came 1 month before this movie came out. It was still the X rating before they decided to change it to NC-17, which basically meant no children under 17 would be admitted. So there was a lot of hype, and that hype did kind of dampen the box office for this movie. This movie didn't do well financially, probably because of that, and it's a shame because the movie itself is actually pretty damn good. Like, it's a really good, well-made erotic thriller. There are good performances all around here. I think Fred Ward's pretty good here, as well as Uma Thurman. Maria de Medeiros is very good here. She was also in Pulp Fiction. A good cast overall. Richard E. Grant, Kevin Spacey, Gary Oldman's in this. It's an overall enjoyable movie. It's a well-made film. It has its intentions in the right place. Phil Kaufman, I think, did a pretty good job working around this rating that he had been dealing with, and he actually made a pretty decent movie. But like I said, I think it was because of that hype that was built up, that this was going to be an NC-17 movie, and that all the eyes were on this to see if this was going to be a success, and if other studios were going to follow in that same pathway, if this movie was a success. And unfortunately, I don't think it was a big success. But I don't think it was the success that Universal was hoping for, because not a lot of other studios really got to do the movie that they really got to use that rating all that much. And even when they got to use it, like 5 years later, we'd have Showgirls. That movie was not a big hit at all. It was a huge financial failure. It was a critical failure. And it was just not a good movie whatsoever. It just felt like an exploitation movie, and a bad exploitation movie. Some would say it's so bad it's a good exploitation movie. But we'll get to that one when we get to that, when that comes out in 95. But Henry and June overall, I think, is a much better movie than I think a lot of people give it credit for. It's a movie that I think is very underrated. I think it's a movie that uses the sex scenes and the erotic stuff here very well. The acting doesn't overshadow everything. The movie looks visually gorgeous. I think the music is very well done. It's a really good movie, a very underrated film. If you can handle the movie's subject matter, I'd say definitely give it a watch. I think it's a movie that definitely deserves to be seen more than what I think it gets the credit for. So, yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, and that is Barry Levinson's Avalon.
Came to America in 1914. And Then I came to Baltimore. It was the most beautiful place you've ever seen in your life.
Oh, Sam, how many times do we have to hear the story? The children know the story.
I'm telling them about when I came to America.
Yeah, we know about it. We all heard it before.
Shared a dream called America in a place called Avalon.
So Avalon comes after Barry Levinson just was knocking it out of the park with 2 back-to-back critically acclaimed Oscar winners with Good Morning Vietnam and then Rain Man. And there was a lot of pressure on him with Avalon. This was a movie that was the 3rd film of his tetralogy of Baltimore films. Movies like Diner, Tin Men, and then later on in the 90s we get the 4th movie in this, Liberty Heights. And I think the movie is okay. I don't think it's one of Barry Levinson's best movies overall. I think he's done a lot better movies than this. It's one of those movies where I think the visuals and the acting really stand out more than the story do. The story, I think, kind of... I don't know what it is, but the story kind of reminds me of a mix between... of all things, An American Tail and The Godfather, 2 things I never thought you would put together, but it feels like it's one of those movies. It doesn't really feel like a competently made original script that Levinson's used to doing with something like this from his series of Baltimore movies. But like I said, the acting overall really makes it stand out more here than most of the rest of the movie does, despite the visuals. The visuals look very good. You have Alan DeVio, who does the cinematography for this, and he does a pretty good job here with the material he's given. The cast, like I said, is great. Armin Morrill-Stahl is very good here. Aidan Quinn. You have Elizabeth Perkins, Joan Plowright, a young Elijah Wood, Kevin Pollak. Just a great cast overall. It's one of those movies that I think it's okay, but I feel like it could have been a whole lot better considering what Levinson had done up to that point. And the movie was not a big hit financially. It was a critical success. It did get nominated for a couple of Oscars, but other than that, though, it's a movie that's really been forgettable. It's one of those movies where it doesn't really get talked about all that much, probably for good reason. It's, like I said, it's not a bad movie, but I don't think it's what Levinson really wanted to do with following 2 successful movies in Vietnam and Rain Man. And, yeah, that's just kind of my overall feeling on it. I'm glad I saw it, but to say that this is one of Levinson's best movies is probably not the right choice to go with here. Avalon's just okay. I mean, I think he did better with his next movie, Bugsy, which came out the year later. But as I said before, we'll get to that one when we get to that one in '91. So.
It was a time when a generation came together to fight for freedom.
So that's the crew of the Memphis Belle, huh?
They're just ordinary men, Colonel.
They fly 24 missions without a scratch. That doesn't sound very ordinary to me.
Bombardier checking in.
Assume positions for takeoff.
A time when boys became soldiers.
Sir, that's the Third Reich down there.
30 seconds to bomb run.
You've never done this before, have you?
Why? Am I doing something wrong?
Strangers became brothers.
I know that I shall meet my fate somewhere among the clouds above.
Look out. Take out the rookies.
Smile? What is there to smile about, sir?
You guys have finished 24 missions. One more and you get to go home. That sure make me smile.
Target for today is Bremen.
From the producer of Chariots of Fire, Matthew Modine, Eric Stoltz.
I know you want to drop the bombs and get the hell out of here. And it's 5 o'clock.
We ask these boys to become men.
If we don't do it, somebody's gonna have to come back here and get it to it for us.
We ask these men to become heroes. And whatever the danger, whatever the odds,
It's our job, ours, nobody else's. Laundry doors open.
we ask them to come home. Memphis Belle.
Some notable things about this movie. Not only does this include Matthew Modine and Eric Stoltz, but it also features future actors that you will see in other movies in the decade, including Sean Astin, who would later become Rudy and be seen in the Lord of the Rings movies. This was Harry Connick Jr.'s feature film debut. Tate Donovan's in this. John Lithgow, D.B. Sweeney, Billy Zane. Some notable names here. Also notable, the producer of this movie is David Putnam. And if you don't remember David Putnam's name, he was the head of Sony Pictures for a little bit, and in the late 80s, he had a tough time really running that studio, and he got fired immediately after that. So this is his first major motion picture back after the disastrous run at Sony Pictures. And for the movie that he has, this movie that they have here, it's overall enjoyable. It is very much filled with a lot of war cliches, and at times it does try to be like the 1940s version of Top Gun in a way with some of the scenes in here. But overall, I think it is a very good movie. I think it's a well-made film. I think the acting really does stand out here. The flying sequences overall are very nicely done. Director Michael Caton-Jones does a pretty good job directing these actors and making this feel as authentic as it can be in a movie being released in 1990 that takes place in the 40s. It is fine for what it is. I think it could have been... It's not one of the great war epics ever, but it is a movie that I think is definitely a lot better than I think most people give it credit for. It's fine for what it is. A little too formulaic at times, but it's definitely worth it. I'd say definitely check it out if you got a chance to. So, anyway, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, which is...
Larry Burroughs has spent his life wishing he had just hit that ball.
I just started a half a second sooner.
Were you thinking about that silly baseball game again?
But today is Larry's birthday, and Mr. Destiny has a way of making wishes come true.
Hitting that baseball has spun your life off in an entirely new direction. Things have changed, Larry. This is your house. Those are your children. Cindy Jo's your wife.
Happy birthday, darling.
God help me.
Now Larry's got everything a man could ever want.
Who does this belong to? Well, it belonged to you, sir. Get the hell out of here. As you wish, sir.
Except the one thing that mattered most. The love he left behind.
I mean, she's my wife, for Pete's sake. She was your wife. Ask me something I couldn't possibly know.
The day I got my driver's license, I got pulled over for speeding. I want to know the name of the song on the radio.
This one.
Touchstone Pictures presents James Belushi and Academy Award winner Michael Caine.
My wife hates my guts. My best friend's afraid of me, but I'm up in a tree in a tuxedo.
In Mr. Destiny.
You didn't think everything was going to be perfect, did you?
Mr. Destiny, which basically is a modern remake of It's a Wonderful Life. It has a lot of the same elements as It's a Wonderful Life, although it's not technically a remake. There's a lot here that you could definitely take from that movie. And like I said before, I don't think Jim Belushi is a bad actor. I know a lot of people get on him all the time because he's nowhere near as good as his brother John Belushi, which is a fair compliment to make, but that doesn't mean the guy is an all-around bad actor. I've seen him be funny in a lot of movies and TV shows. Yeah, he's not, like I said, he's not as good as his brother John, but he's proven that he can be a decent actor, and I think in this movie that definitely proves my theory here, because he is really good in this movie. I like his performance in this. I like that he and Michael Caine have a lot of good chemistry in the scenes that they're in. I like the chemistry that he has between his two different wives, his wife before he meets Michael Caine and Linda Hamilton, and his wife that he meets afterwards, which is Renee Russo. And you've also got John Lovitz in here, Hart Bachner, Courtney Cox in an early role. Yeah, it's a little formulaic at times, and it definitely feels very much that they're trying to capture the spirit of It's a Wonderful Life, but this is actually a pretty decent film. It's a movie that I don't think a lot of people really talk about all that much, but it is a very good movie. It's a movie that I think is very underrated. It's definitely probably one of my favorite movies from Belushi as an actor, as a movie actor. But yeah, I think this movie is definitely a lot better than most people give it credit for. I'd say definitely check it out and go in it with an open mind. If you like Jim Belushi's comedy, like stuff like from According to Jim and stuff like that but yeah, he could be a very good actor, and I think this is definitely one of his best leading roles that he's been in, at least in my opinion. So that's my thoughts on Mr. Destiny. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is...
They're nice. Who? Them. Oh. Think mine will be as nice as yours someday? Touch me with your white words and your dead hands. I beg your pardon? Now, before I freeze. That'll be enough. And become one of you. Dinky! You interrupted me.
Jeez, Dinky. God, you scared me.
Scare everybody.
I hereby proclaim this Roxy Carmichael Week.
Roxy Carmichael's a damn good businesswoman.
She's famous.
What's she famous for?
It's just not every day that a legend returns to Clyde. Dinky, what would make you lock yourself in Roxy Carmichael's room and get into her bed?
Be closer to her. She's coming home, you know. That was a $32 sweater, Missy, and you dyed it black, didn't you? It's just that I feel like we adopted a baby from Mars or something. She is not like us at all. We just don't fit. It happened.
I just can't wait to see whether Roxy's been able to keep her weight down.
She developed so fast.
Too fast, if you ask me. You're kidding about Dinky, right?
Well, she's got a good sense of humor.
Well, so does Rodney Dangerfield, but I wouldn't marry him.
Do you think I should go blonde? Roxy Carmichael always took a chance. Go for it.
You'll also see pictures of her beloved dog, Bonkers.
She loved that dog. She used to ride it.
He was a big dog.
My real mother wants me back, and I have to go with her.
Who's her mom? She says her mother's Roxy Carmichael. She thinks Roxy is her mother?
Winona Ryder.
God, I want to kiss you so bad right now, Dinky.
It's good to want things.
Jeff Daniels.
Strange kid.
She's here! Welcome home, Roxy Carmichael.
Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael, which is the second solo directing outing for Jim Abrams, who his first directing outing was Big Business. Of course, he's part of the Zuckers, Abrams, and Zucker collaboration of the Naked Gun and the Airplane movies, and his next movie would find him much better success with Hot Shots and, of course, Hot Shots Part 2. And Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael is a very mixed bag of a movie. I will say that. I think it's another one of those movies where the performances, I think, stand out the most. This is a great breakout role for Winona Ryder, who plays the leading character in this movie, and I think she's very good in this film. She definitely is one of the highlights of the film. You also have Jeff Daniels in here. Layla Robbins from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is also in this. Francis Fisher, Stephen Tobolowsky. Just a great cast overall here. The problem with the movie mostly comes in the script. I think the script writing here is not as strong as I think it would have been. And, I mean, it's a movie that is very formulaic. It's a very similar, it's a very similar movie to a lot of teen movies of the time. But like I said, the real reason to check this movie out is because of the performance of Winona Ryder, which I think really was part of a strong year for her, because she had this, and then she did Edward Scissorhands, and then Mermaids. And it just shows her how much she grows as an actress over the years after this, because of course most people saw her first in Beetlejuice, and then Heathers, and now now Roxy Carmichael, and then just this growth that continues to grow with her with each passing film. It's a really good movie. I take that back. It's a decent movie that could have been a really good movie. It's a decent movie that, with a better script, probably would have been one of an underrated gem, but for what it is, it works fine for the cast that it has. Winona Ryder really is the highlight of the film. There are funny moments here and there. The script just needed a little bit of a boost, in my opinion. So that's my thoughts on Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is...
He made Blood Fist the most popular kickboxing movie of all time. Now, Blood Fist 2, featuring Maurice Smith, World Heavyweight Champion, Manny Sampson, Martial Arts Champion, James Waring, World Cruiserweight Champion, and starring Don the Dragon Wilson, the highest-rated kickboxer of all time. Betrayed by his best friend, the dragon is taken to a secret island for a battle of champions. Don Wilson consistently delivers knockout action. Official Karate magazine. Twice the action, twice the adventure, and 11 on the 10 scale. Century Cable Network. Rarely is a sequel more powerful than the original. Blood Fist 2 is a knockout. Inside Karate magazine. Blood Fist 2.
Blood Fist 2. If you've seen Blood Fist 1, you probably saw Blood Fist 2. I haven't seen the Blood Fist 2, quite honestly, because I just don't have the time to do it. And really, judging by this trailer, it definitely looks like the first Blood Fist movie all over again. I mean, I don't know if anybody else saw that, but there's nothing about this movie that really makes it stand out compared to the first movie. I mean, when I was watching that trailer the first time, I honestly thought to myself, is this the first trailer all over again? Because it very much feels like the first movie, except with different martial artists in there. And, yeah, I haven't seen it, so I can't really comment on it, but, yeah, it definitely looks like the ultimate sequel, where it's just basically recopying the first movie with different actors in it, except for the leading actor, and, yeah, there's nothing about it that really makes me want to see it, so... Anyway, yeah, Blood Fist 2. Now let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, which is a far superior movie than Blood Fist 2, I would think. Dennis Hopper's directorial effort, and that is The Hot Spot.
Welcome to a vision of life, as only America's most controversial director, Dennis Hopper, could show it.
The hell is the matter with you, Maddox? You got a grudge against the world or something?
Nope. I'm a car salesman.
So what you gonna do in our town?
Whatever there is to do.
There are only two things to do around here. Have you got a TV?
Yeah, Mr. Harshaw, he always said that she just sort of happened.
Well, the smart thing would have been get the hell out of there and let her happen to somebody else.
He told me that he knows something about you, something bad.
You know, I have got to get that surveillance equipment working.
Lucky you wasn't a bank robber.
It's my batting average always been for staying out of trouble. It's baited with this much trim.
You know you robbed the bank. We know you robbed the bank. That makes it unanimous. Maddox.
Don't pay him. Do you understand me?
Well, that little gal's got you all stoked up, doesn't she?
Said nobody would ever be able to take my place. That you'd never be able to leave me, because that's exactly how I want it.
I swear to God, I'll kill you.
No, you won't. Not now. Now kiss me.
The Hot Spot. Film noir for the 90s.
This is actually Dennis Hopper's second to last film that he made as a director. His last movie would be Chasers in '94. And of course his directing career got started with Easy Rider. And this is one of his more underrated movies. This is a movie where, it's also a movie where Don Johnson, who as a leading actor in movies didn't get the best success, but this is probably his strongest leading film role that I can remember seeing from the filmography that he has. He really is Johnson's really good in this movie. He definitely shows off why he became such a star with Miami Vice and why he is such a likable actor at times. Like he could be really good in this movie, playing kind of this snarky, charismatic a-hole. But I mean, the chicks really love him in this movie. And speaking of the chicks in this movie, Virginia Madsen, Jennifer Connelly. Oh boy, they are something else in this movie. This movie definitely likes to play with plays with a lot of vibes from an erotic thriller aspect, and it definitely shows in here. And it's done very well. It's done very tastefully, and it doesn't feel like it's just being there to just be titillating for the audience. It's playing a part in the story. It is a very good mystery film. It's a good thriller. It's a good dramatic movie. These actors are doing a very good job. Dennis Hopper is doing a great job directing this movie. It's a really good movie. It's probably one of his most underrated films. It definitely deserves a lot more attention than I think it gets. If you haven't seen The Hot Spot, I'd say definitely check it out. You will not be disappointed if you like these type of movies. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. It's Danny Glover starring in To Sleep with Anger.
I'm Danny Glover. I've recently had the opportunity to be in a very special motion picture called To Sleep with Anger. It's the first major film written and directed by noted filmmaker Charles Burnett. To Sleep with Anger. It's a film about old friends.
We haven't seen you in what? Must be 30 years or more.
I'm telling you, Harry is nothing but evil.
Boy, that's bad luck to touch a fellow with a broom.
What must we turn it over?
Take me to the water. Take me to the water.
Are you a friend, Harry?
Take me to the water. To be there.
All right now. I said, Harry sets foot in this house one more time, that I'm taking Sonny and leaving. And just as I said that, who do you think is coming up the steps? Harry.
That's real corn liquor. It ain't your dog.
Harry. You know, you remind me of so much that went wrong in my life.
To Sleep with Anger.
Well, for one thing, I'll give Danny Glover credit. It's very interesting to see him play a character that's definitely out of his normal characters, what they usually plays in movies. And this movie does look pretty interesting. It's a movie I haven't seen before, but I hadn't even heard about, honestly, until I actually looked at the trailer for this. I thought it was going to be something more serious, and in a way it is kind of a little over-the-top-ish, but maybe that's kind of the point of the movie itself. But, I mean, it definitely does look promising. Danny Glover looks like he's having a ton of fun with this role. You also have a lot of good actors in this. Cheryl Lee Ralph, Richard Brooks, Carl Lumbly, Vanetta McGee. Just a great cast overall here. Like I said, I can't really comment on the movie itself. I can only just go off by the trailer here, but the trailer really does show something a lot more interesting than I think a lot of people would have looked at if this movie had actually gone to a wider release. But, I mean, it does look promising. It doesn't look like a movie that shows a lot of potential here. Like I said, I haven't seen it, so I can't really comment on it, but it's definitely something I really want to check out at some point. And maybe I will someday, so definitely one that I'm going to keep my eye on. If I see it somewhere at a good price, I'll definitely check it out, maybe. But let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, and that is The Spirit of 76.
2176.
History is over. Not if we can save it.
We want you to pilot that mission.
Back in time. How far back are we talking about?
1776. We must find the Constitution.
Prepare yourself for a journey back to the strangest, most alien place ever experienced.
Looks like we made it. Oh, no.
1976.
What sign are you? Because my mood ring just totally changed colors.
What happens now?
Now, we boogie.
Starring disco dancing.
I suggest we get you guys some new threads immediately.
Leisure suits.
Barf City.
Sensitivity training.
Excuse me, what are you doing?
I'm exercising my freedom of choice and leaving.
No. Look what your mother and I just bought.
Fabulous cars.
Is that the kind of car I think that is?
Everybody was
Kung Fu fighting. Beanbag chairs. Streaking.
Good day, officers.
And much, much more.
I've heard this before.
Sure you have. It's the hustle.
The Spirit of 76.
Are we gonna be tested on this or something?
Don't pretend you can't remember.
Take it easy.
And you can kind of see why this movie doesn't really get talked about all that much. I mean, it's got a good concept here. It has a funny idea. These guys go from 2176, try to go back to 1776, but for some reason they end up in 1976. But, Yeah, that trailer was rough. That was rough to get through. It's hard to believe that one of Rob Reiner's kids directed this movie, Lucas Reiner, who really hasn't done much in directing. He directed one other movie, but he's mostly known as an artist and a photographer nowadays. I mean, but again, it's one of those concepts where I could definitely see the potential of this working, but the jokes just seem really corny, especially for something that takes place 14 years after the time period that they're going to. I don't know, man. This movie just doesn't look that promising to me whatsoever. It's a movie that I think is a little too ambitious. They're trying to do something different and unique and clever, but it just really doesn't show it. It doesn't really show in that trailer. It just looks like a movie that, if you didn't tell me it was made in 1990, I would have guessed this was made in like 2000 or something, or the late 90s, like back when you had more time to really make fun of the 70s if you wanted to. But I don't know. I mean, it just didn't work. It just doesn't work from this trailer for me. I don't think it really had that much of a following, because you can barely find this movie except for one DVD. But I don't know. I really can't comment too much on it. I haven't seen it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this movie has a huge cult following that I don't know about, but so far I haven't seen anything to really back that up, so I can only say that maybe there's potential here, but that trailer did not really sell me on this movie. So there you go. That's my thoughts on The Spirit of 76. It's something that could be interesting, but probably isn't.
All Matthew Quigley did was answer a help wanted ad. But a few surprises were waiting for Quigley down under. There was no mention of his friendly co-workers.
Is everybody in this country as butt ugly as you three?
Or that he'd get an assistant.
Look out, Roy! Sorry, Roy!
Nothing about the transportation problem.
Are we lost?
Nope. I know exactly where we are. We're lost.
The unusual local inhabitants. The extraordinary cuisine.
I don't eat things that are still moving.
You gonna shoot it first?
Or the extra duties.
You can take me if you want to, Roy.
Kid, next time she talks like that, go all over the dress.
Worst of all, his employer turned out to be somewhat moody.
You could call it that.
But Quigley's about to teach him a lesson in labor relations.
So that knocks me out of my own house.
Don't worry, Roy. Everything's gonna turn out just fine. Sorry, Roy.
My name ain't Roy, it's Matthew. Quigley.
Matthew Quigley is really beginning to annoy me.
Tom Selleck, Laura San Giacomo, Alan Rickman, from the director of the Emmy Award-winning Lonesome Dove, Quigley, Down Under.
For the most part, this movie is not all that bad. It's a decent Western, but it doesn't really do anything different to make it stand out on its own. Plus, I think the 90s had much better Westerns. Case in point, Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven, which makes these type of movie like this very hard to topple. But, it's not a bad movie. I mean, the performances, I think, stand out most in this, especially Laura San Giacomo, who was just coming off a Sex Lies videotape, and this definitely proved that she had a presence on screen that would carry her much into the 90s. And to give Tom Selleck credit, after Magnum P.I., these were probably the best movies that he did after Magnum P.I. ended, because, I mean, really, An Innocent Man, Folks, those movies didn't really have any longevity to him after he finished Magnum P.I. Probably the biggest question mark here is Alan Rickman, who I think his performance in this was trying a little too hard to be like Hans Gruber in Die Hard, instead of just being another character overall. Again, not terrible in here, but it was too much like his other character from Die Hard, honestly. Like I said, for the most part, it's a decent movie. It's not one I'd rather watch over and over again, but I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad to see that there was some merit to it, at least. But, yeah, that's my quick thoughts on Quigley Down Under. Now let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is the remake of Night of the Living Dead, directed by Tom Savini.
They came to pay their respects.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Why do you have to be so cruel?
What?
Show some respect.
Now, they're running for their lives.
A biologist in Stockton, California have released reports focusing on the phenomenon, specifically on that trance-like state.
Every shelter is becoming a trap.
Are you sure we're gonna be all right?
Cooper, you gotta help me out!
And every road out
Don't stop no matter what happens.
is just another dead end.
They're coming right for us.
George Romero's Night of the Living Dead.
So if you've been watching this channel for a long time and you've been reading the website, you know that I live in western Pennsylvania. I live about 15 minutes away from the Monroeville Mall, which is where Dawn of the Dead was filmed. And around here, of course, the original Night of the Living Dead was filmed here, as was Day of the Dead. Of course, George A. Romero was from here. There's a statue inside the mall that I always say hello to every time I do one of my videos for Movie Stop. So, when a movie like this comes around, people around here who really like these movies, we pay very close attention to it because, of course, when you're remaking Night of the Living Dead, one of the classic horror movies, zombie movies of all time, we're really going to keep a close eye on it because we want to see if this movie is of merit and actually doing something with it. And, it's alright. That's the best thing I could say about this movie is that it's okay. It doesn't really do anything to make it stand out compared to the other film, except the other film was in black and white, and this is in color. I mean, it's not a bad movie. It's a competently made film. Some of the performances I liked in this. I mean, anything with Tony Todd in it's going to be pretty enjoyable to watch. Of course, you got Candyman and the main guy from Final Destination. I mean, what can you go wrong there? But yeah, for the most part, this movie is a very unnecessary remake because it's really not doing anything all that different compared to the first movie, except the fact that it's in color now instead of black and white. Most of the performances are pretty much about the same, or at least subpar compared to the previous movie. But, yeah, for the most part here, this remake is kind of unnecessary when you really think about it. I mean, in a way, it's almost it's not really shot for shot, but it comes pretty close. It's almost bordering on Psycho 98 levels of shot-by-shot remakes, but it doesn't really get that far. But, like I said, there's really nothing here about this movie that makes it necessary, except the fact that Tom Savini directed it and George A. Romero produced it as well as wrote the script for it. But yeah, other than that, though, there's nothing really special about this movie, at least to me, that it feels necessary. I mean, the original movie still holds up to this very day. If you go back and watch that movie now, it still holds up to this very day. And I've seen other versions of this done a little bit better. They did an animated movie a year ago, which I thought was alright. I'd honestly say it's probably on this level, too. Kind of unnecessary, but at least it's fun to watch. Like, it's fun to see what new changes they make in here, even though this one is... The changes here are slim to none. But, like I said, it's not a bad movie, but it just feels unnecessary. It feels like a movie that really didn't need to be made, at least in my opinion. If you really want to see it and give it a fair chance, I'd say you definitely check it out. You might have some fun with it, but don't go in expecting the original Night of the Living Dead. If you're looking for something that's going to be a bigger upgrade compared to the original film, then just stick with the original film if you can. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the 1990 Night of the Living Dead. So, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Susan Sarandon and James Spader in White Palace.
50 burgers, you gave me 44. Now, what's the problem? Do I get my money back, or do I go to the manager?
Yo, buddy, listen, I'd like to get my hamburgers.
Will you just leave Mr. Stair alone? He's trying to report a robbery here.
In 1988, she seduced the screen with the year's sexiest performance in Bull Durham.
You looking for trouble?
Maybe you should take your hand off my thigh.
My hand's not on your thigh.
In 1989, he gave on-screen romance a whole new meaning in Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
Just when things seem ordinary or downright hopeless, along comes that unexpected opportunity, right?
Maybe.
Now,
What you want?
Susan Sarandon
I'm 43.
and James Spader
I'm 27.
are about to heat up the 90s.
How'd you meet Max?
Came in for a burger.
How romantic.
She took his order and turned his life
Turn again.
Where?
into chaos.
Who is she?
What if I don't answer that?
She's gonna keep me in some little box and take me out whenever you feel like playing with me. What is that?
She's a friend of mine. Her name is Nora. You be nice to her mother or I'm going to beat the hell out of you. I don't know what's happening to me. I have never wanted a woman as much as I wanted you. You crazy? What is he talking about?
She's no spring chicken.
What do you think of our boy?
Say it, please. Nice boy.
Please. I only know that when I'm not with you, I'm a total wreck.
And when you are with me?
I'm a different kind of total wreck.
Right from the start, they were wrong for each other.
You know, honestly, I don't really know how to feel about this movie. I feel like it's trying to tell something very important. It's trying to be like something groundbreaking or unique, but I just don't see it. I mean, basically the plot is that a 27-year-old James Spader is hooking up with a 43-year-old Susan Sarandon, which I guess if the idea was that this is supposed to be like a May-December romance type of thing, I don't know. I mean, to me, I don't know. To me, when I think May-December romances, I think of decades between the two couples, like somebody's 30 and somebody's 70, that type of thing. But I don't know. Maybe that's just my thinking here. But as far as this movie goes, it's another one of those movies that's just okay. I mean, I think what does help it carry it over are the performances by Susan Sarandon and James Spader. I think both of them work very well here. You can buy their chemistry a little bit, but honestly, at least to me, I don't see the real reason for a movie like this to even exist. I mean, it doesn't really say anything groundbreaking or interesting to keep the audience guessing about how to feel about this. There's nothing really. There's no real suspense to it. There's no real intrigue about it. I mean, it's just these two people that are within 15 years apart in age just getting together, and it's just like, okay, what else you got here? And it doesn't really feel like there is a lot there. And I think that's the biggest problem with this movie here, is that there's nothing really there to make this movie really stand down on its own. It's just kind of like, okay, here's the setup, just let it happen. It's just like, no, I don't think that you can do that with a movie like this. I mean, like I said, the performances, I think, stand out the most. That's the one thing I would say about this movie, is that the two performances by Sarandon and Spader work very well compared to the actual script here. But for the most part, though, it's a movie that I would say that you don't need to rush out to see it. Only if you want to see some good Susan Sarandon and James Spader performances. But for the most part, yeah, it's a pretty forgettable film, to say the least. So, I mean, for the most part, this entire week has been mostly forgettable movies. But luckily, our last movie has some notoriety to it, and that is Jeremy Irons and Glenn Close in Reversal of Fortune.
He defied public opinion.
When I married Sonny, she was the most beautiful divorcee in the world, and one of the wealthiest.
You marry me for my money, then you demand to work. You're the prince of perversion.
Flaunted the privileges of his wife's money.
I'm involved with someone who falls beyond the parameters of our agreement.
Well, that must be better for you than what you've had to put up with.
Until his own family accused him of trying to kill her. Now, a world-renowned Harvard lawyer.
I should tell you that I have the greatest respect for the intelligence and integrity of the Jewish people.
I'm not a hired gun. I gotta feel there's some moral or constitutional issue at stake.
But I'm absolutely innocent.
And a team of law students.
We have to completely obliterate every single aspect of the state's case.
Are the only ones who believe in him.
Klaus is a scapegoat.
He's obviously guilty of something pretty despicable.
Insolent.
Because almost everyone else believes
My lady's not diabetic.
that anyone with so much to gain.
You do have one thing in your favor. Everybody hates you.
Well, that's a start.
Must have something to hide.
In Europe, a gentleman is given the opportunity to end things properly.
You're a very strange man.
You have no idea.
Glenn Close. Jeremy Irons.
I'm not afraid of them. Let the chips fall where they may.
Ron Silver.
That's what an innocent man would say.
I know.
Reversal of Fortune. The mysterious case of Klaus von Bülow.
Obviously the best movie that came out this weekend. This is the story of Klaus von Bülow, who was accused of killing his wife, but his family was the one that accused him of killing his wife, and he gets this attorney, Alan Dershowitz, played by Ron Silver in this movie, to help his case out. And it works on both levels. It works as a great courtroom thriller, but it also works as well as a satirical look at the rich, and it helps deeply with the great performances by Jeremy Irons, who won an Academy Award for this, for Best Actor, and Glenn Close, who was very good in this, as well as Ron Silver, and just some great performances all around, and quotes that still hold up to this very day, like Jeremy Irons' line after Ron Silver says, "You're a strange person," and he goes, "You have no idea," holds such an impact that it was actually used later on in The Lion King, 4 years later, where Jeremy Irons, of course, played Scar. But, yeah, like I said, Barbet Schroeder directed this movie, Nicholas Kazan wrote it. Like I said, it's a great mix of two things. A great courtroom drama, a great satire on the rich and all, and it's just an enjoyable movie. It's a well-made, competently made film. It's a film that has a lot of good performances, has moments that still hold up to this very day, and it's a movie that, compared to the other three movies, I think holds a lot more in time since its release than the other three movies that we've looked at today have. So yeah, I would say if you haven't seen it already, definitely check out Reversal of Fortune, but chances are you probably have. But even if you didn't, definitely check out Reversal of Fortune if you can.
Stephen King invites you to venture deep inside the caverns, below the old Bachman Mill.
You're not thinking about going down in there?
Where a secret lies long forgotten by any living soul.
Just ain't no job worth this.
The workers suspected.
You can't put me down there. You can't put anybody down there. I know things.
The owner denies it.
What did happen to the fellow that started this job?
It didn't work out.
And everyone fears it.
This place is infested. That might be the understatement of the year.
Because one by one, it will devour them all.
We're like shrimp in an all-you-can-eat salad bar, and that thing ain't stopping till it's full.
Must be some other way out of here.
It's blood!
This isn't real.
This is the new horror from the mind of Stephen King. Graveyard Shift. Good benefits. Early retirement.
Yeah, considering that most of the people behind the scenes didn't really have any projects afterwards, maybe one or two, and considering that Stephen King really does not like this movie all that much, you could pretty much tell that this movie was not really good. It really does not hold a cake compared to some of the other movies he's made, Pet Sematary and Maximum Overdrive up to this point, but I mean, it's got a loyal following. I mean, Scream Factory put it out on Blu-ray a few years ago, and it does have its fans. It does have its fans, but it definitely does not feel like a movie that's up there with some of the best movies based off of Stephen King material. I mean, there are so many better movies made based off of King books, and this is definitely not one of them. This is a movie that feels very generic, feels very formulaic, feels very predictable, feels very cliched. It's got some nice practical effects overall, but overall the movie itself is just not really all that good. So, yeah, at least that's my opinion. Like I said, it has its fans, but I'm not one of them. So that's Graveyard Shift. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Kirstie Alley and the comedy Sibling Rivalry.
Marjorie Turner has a little problem.
You should get rid of Harry and have an affair.
She's married to it.
I think the real reason that you and Harry have never had children is because you don't do it enough.
Oh, you are sick.
You didn't want to make love, did you?
Then one afternoon,
You dented your cheese.
Marjorie's little problem disappeared
My Aunt Jemima.
and left her.
Oh,
With one big problem.
I killed him.
Hello? What's the cause of death?
He had himself a heart attack.
At least he went in his sleep.
Hollywood. After. Oh, I hope it was after. Ew.
That's disgusting.
It apparently made quite an impact on him.
Tried to kill himself with a laxative?
Oh.
Exactly.
I've never seen him naked before.
I don't like to touch anything below the belt myself. This is highly irregular.
I don't think I should be involved in this.
Kirstie Alley.
Now I have 2 things to confess in church this week.
Bill Pullman.
I'm excited about it.
Carrie Fisher.
Wow, look at those kidneys.
Jamie Gertz.
I like fish.
Scott Bakula.
My lower intestine repulses you?
Sam Elliott. Ed O'Neill.
Let's see.
Sibling rivalry.
It was not sex. It was good.
Yet another Kirstie Alley comedy in 1990 that has a really good cast to it. I mean, Madhouse had a great cast to it, but this, you have, not only have Kirstie Alley, but you have Jamie Gertz, you have Bill Pullman, Ed O'Neill, Carrie Fisher, Scott Bakula, Francis Sternhagen, John Randolph, Sam Elliott. Just a great cast overall, directed by Carl Reiner, and yet it just doesn't work. It's a comedy that really doesn't know what it's trying to be. Like, it's very much similar to Madhouse. It's supposed to be a black comedy, but it doesn't really feel like they had a good idea of how they wanted this film to go about. I mean, it's a movie that's very confusing. There's really not a whole lot of laughs here. The cast here is pretty much wasted on a script that's not really written all that well. And it just doesn't feel like a movie that was really all that good until the way they were setting it up. Like, it felt like a script that needed another rewrite. Primarily just to get better writing in there. Because really, nothing really happens in this movie that's exciting or hilarious or shows how funny these people can be. Because these people can be really funny when given the right material to work with. And this just isn't it. And I mean, Carl Reiner, man, one of the great comedy directors of all time. And he was on a downward spiral at this point. And this was another movie that just didn't work out for him. But, so yeah, that's my quick thoughts on Sibling Rivalry. It's a movie that definitely does not work. So let's go on to the next movie, and that is Tune In Tomorrow.
Lowest ratings in Louisiana. But all that's about to change.
I just hired us. A grade A, numero uno, no previous owner genius.
Yes, the greatest soap opera writer in the world.
Pedro Carmichael.
And now WXVU's ratings are about to go sky high.
That's more important. Life? Hurrah! But it wasn't art. You just copied word for word what we said.
This is madness.
Julia was Pedro!
Brilliant script.
Get away! Julia had nothing to do with it!
My God, what a can of worms. Boy, there's a lot of reality impacting here.
Buck Henry, Elizabeth McGovern, John Larroquette, Keanu Reeves, Barbara Hershey, and Peter Falk.
Excuse me, sir. There's an Albanian outside, and he's doing something unnatural to your German Shepherd.
In the outrageous comedy, Tune In Tomorrow.
Another movie that has a really good cast to it. Barbara Hershey, Keanu Reeves, Peter Falk, Dee Dee Pfeiffer, Patricia Clarkson, Henry Gibson, Peter Gallagher, Dan Hedaya, Buck Henry, John Larroquette, Elizabeth McGovern. But much like Sibling Rivalry, it just doesn't work because the script is not really all that well written. And honestly, this is what Soap Dish... This is kind of like a diet version of Soap Dish. Because Soap Dish, I think, did this concept a whole lot better. This idea of the drama behind the scenes of a production. And I think Soap Dish, the year that comes out the year after this, does this movie this idea and this movie a whole lot better. But I mean, it's unfortunate that this is another movie where you have a great cast, but unfortunately the material given to them just doesn't work. It's a movie that really does not work very well, and yeah, that's all I got to say about this one. Tune in tomorrow. So let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, and that is The Nasty Girl.
Bitte fragen Sie mich nicht, warum.
Eines Tages durfte ich das Archiv vom Filzinger Morgen nicht mehr benutzen. Angeblich, weil die Zeitungen auf Mikrofilm aufgenommen wurden. Aber dann ist alles ganz anders gekommen.
Das ist noch das alte Rezept von meinem Großpapa.
Dem Charlie war die Vergangenheit egal. Er sagt, Hauptsache das Geschäft blüht. Der Charlie sagt, die Amerikaner haben seinem Großvater sogar angeboten, dass er in den USA eine Schokoladenfabrik aufmacht. Darum glaubt er nicht, dass der alte Zumtobel ein Nazi-Verbrecher war, wie die Leute manchmal sagen.
Unfortunately, that was the only clip I could find, and I haven't seen this movie, but I've seen a little bit of some of the imagery here, and let's just say there's one clip that I saw on YouTube where the stock photo they have at the front is a picture of a woman looking at a cat with both of its paws nailed to the wall, and it's just like, okay, so it's going to be that kind of a movie, huh? And like I said, I can't really comment on it because I haven't seen it. It's a foreign film. It's from West Germany, and I mean, it doesn't. From the little bit I saw, it doesn't look too bad, but I feel like it does those little things to try to get a spark from people, a shock from people. But then again, maybe it plays a part in the movie. Like I said, I can't really comment on it, but because I haven't seen it. But just wanted to acknowledge that that came out this weekend. So that's The Nasty Girl.